So, I recently watched Skyscraper, the Dwayne Johnson classic from 2018 with my roommate. We were pretty bored and we felt like watching a movie that would, be fun and action-packed. We watched the movie at about 10:30, and by the very next morning, neither of us could remember anything that happened in the movie that wasn't something we laughed at. There was almost nothing good that we took away from the movie that we were like, yeah, that's awesome. Sign me up for the sequel. Seriously, there's so much laughable content for a movie that takes itself so goddamn seriously in some parts that I had to look up the director and see if he wasn't some sort of comedy director. And this got me thinking about a lot of his other films, and I started to wonder, why is his action hero status so much more highly regarded than most other people's? I mean, I know that he's built like a lumberjack, ate another lumberjack, but what is it about his movies that make people so willing to invest hundreds of millions of dollars just because he's attached to the project? It's because he's a guy with very little wrong with him. He's a likable, somewhat charismatic guy who really doesn't challenge you to like him in any of his movies, and his characters always seem to do the right thing. There's nothing about him that makes you question anything about his character. I mean, there are a few exceptions to this, obviously, but I honestly don't think in 5 to 10 years people are going to be looking back on Rampage or San Andreas or Hobbs&Shaw or Central Intelligence or Journey to the Mysterious Island or Journey to the Mysterious Island. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that correctly. I was really just waiting for them to say the title in the movie, which they didn't. And if I were a gambling man, I'd say that Jungle Cruise, which he has coming out later this year, or not, depending on when movies are going to be released now, is going to be one of those unmemorable movies. He's a movie star who started off with so much potential and took some risks to someone whose movies are almost indistinguishable with each other. Except for the game plan. I love the game plan.
Get the magic!
I'm not trying to hate on him or anything. I think Dwayne Johnson is like a really nice guy who does a lot for his fans and the people that support him. He seems to genuinely care about people, but I think his movies are an example of a larger problem with action movies today. There's an inherent unwillingness of many studios to take risks and the acceptance of being something generic in order to cash in on that. Alright, let's start this off with a game. I bet that right now, you can't name a single character in his movies from the last 10 years, other than the times he's played himself.
What you want? How about what The Rock wants?
Or, his characters in the title of the movie.
My cock's small.
Granted, this alone doesn't make his characters bad. Sometimes I can't even remember what my own grandmother's name is. I'm pretty sure it's something like Grandmommy. Anyway, these days he just seems to be playing the same character in every movie. Some former military guy who was the best at what he did but went through something traumatic and he had to quit, but now he's back to save the day because apparently no one else in the world has ever been in the military before. And also, apparently he has time to work out 6 hours a day. Jesus, look at him. There's no way he doesn't work out 6 hours a day. It's almost unbelievable how many of his characters fit this archetype. After that, Dwayne Johnson's personality is just thrown onto these characters. I mean, it doesn't matter how varying their backstories are. They're going to have the same exact personality as the last character Dwayne Johnson played. They're never unlikable, they always seem to do the right thing, and they make painfully unfunny puns.
It's not the dance you want to do with me, woman.
San Andreas, for example, starts off with him being a divorced father and the best damn ex-military National Guard rescuer in the business. And of course, his ex-wife is now with a total asshole and his daughter doesn't think all that much of him and she likes the new total asshole more. So, do you think he's going to get back together with his ex-wife and his family is going to be together again by the end of the movie? Do you? Really think about this now. Of course he is. Because, he's like the nicest guy on the planet. These movies always start off with, man, I'm a really, really good guy. But do I have it in me to be the best guy? Of course I do. I'm the goddamn hero. We know, man. That's why we came to the theater. That doesn't mean we don't want to see a character change or grow as the movie goes on. And that tragic backstory that he has is always going to be mirrored in Skyscraper, quite literally mirrored, by the film's climax. that doesn't mean your character can't be flawed. He can't even be a little bit of an asshole. No, because then maybe the audience wouldn't like him for a second. We can't have that. We can't have anything tarnishing the representation of the studio's brand.
Hello, I like money.
He hasn't learned anything. He doesn't change throughout the course of a movie. He's just the tool to say,
well, what'd you expect?
He knows nothing, Jon Snow.
It's so prevalent that they even morph his character from the Fast and Furious movies into just this Dwayne Johnson archetype. In the first Fast and Furious movie he's in, which is the 5th one, he's some badass government tracker out to hunt down Vin Diesel and Paul Walker because, they broke like 1 million laws in each movie. He's shown to be ruthless, no nonsense, smart, adaptive, and most of all, super sweaty. He even makes a point to say he doesn't care if they're guilty or not.
All these guys are his names on a list. They come up, we take them down. Not a phone call more, not a bullet less.
And even when his entire team is killed, men who he was presumably close to by a ruthless drug lord, does he say some sort of stupid comment or quip after he kills the man who did it? No. He just casually shoots him and says,
It's for my team, you son of a bitch.
Now compare that to him in Hobbs&Shaw, where he's supposed to arrest or kill some lady who stole some drug or something and killed her team. I wasn't paying that much attention. He treats this entire mission and their fight scene like it's a joke. He knocks her out, and once he's interrogating her, he insists that he knows she's innocent and tries to figure out who did whatever it is she did or didn't do, Also, he has a daughter now. It just makes him a little more of a friendly and appealing to the audience type of guy.
Wait a minute! Who are you?
People are gonna be like, he's so nice to his daughter. He's a family man. I want him to win now. And when the bad guy comes to take his whole office down, he just keeps making jokes with Jason Statham and so many other unfunny remarks.
Now I take you to school, son.
Now, which of these characters seems more interesting to watch? I'd rather watch this badass than just any other stock quippy character who doesn't say that many funny jokes. They, throughout the course of just a couple movies, turned this really cool and interesting character into the same Dwayne Johnson charisma machine that everybody is so accustomed to these days, that exists solely to appeal to the most amount of demographics possible. Now, it's not just the characters. His movies also lack a certain realistic quality to them. This is the main quality that I believe makes audiences really invest in a story and its characters. You're allowed to stretch the bounds of reality to a point, but once you break that, it's so hard to actually stay invested in a movie. In Hobbs&Shaw, at the finale, they're trying to bring down a helicopter where the main bad guy is shooting at them. They establish they need to weigh it down with like 7 or 8 cars. And the only reason the helicopter is kept down is because they use NOS.
Hit the NOS. Are you sure? Yes. Brace yourself.
Now, they do damage the helicopter's engine, but it's not like it falls out of the sky. It's still a goddamn helicopter. Then all the cars attached to them drive away. Of course, the chain comes loose. So The Rock, being on the back of the car, grabs the chain and is physically holding back the helicopter with his massive biceps. What? Movie? You just lost me. Now, again, to be fair, we have seen people do this in movies before, like Captain America and Captain America Civil War and Neo in The Matrix. But these characters are shown to actually have superpowers. And get this, there is another character in this movie who actually does possess super strength, who's in the helicopter, who I potentially believe could do this. But the movie goes out of its way to show that, no, The Rock is stronger. Because he's The Rock.
That's a big arm. Don't fight it.
There are so many times his movies do something like this that jumps the shark in terms of realism, like when he uses duct tape to scale a skyscraper in Skyscraper.
Is that duct tape?
And when that falls because, it's fucking duct tape, he is caught by his fake leg, one that was shown to not be physically attached to him, but just sort of suctioned on, and it doesn't immediately fall off. And don't even get me started on the jump he does between these 2 giant buildings with a peg leg. Just, no. It's stuff like this that really bothers me. It completely takes me out of the movie, and it makes me laugh at just how silly stuff like this can be.
You serious?
And while it's all fun to laugh at a movie and how ridiculous it is, it makes the movie worse. And if I'm checked out of a movie like this, then that's the end of it for me.
I couldn't have done it without these massive guns! Mwah! Mwah!
Now, I hate to say this, but part of it is his size. It's just so hard for audiences to relate to someone who's that massive. Now, personally, I'm 150 pounds. It's hard for me to picture myself doing anything that a 300 plus pound man is doing on screen. Is he 300 pounds? I don't know. Let me look it up. The Rock weight. 260 pounds, but he's still much bigger than your regular person. Now look at something like Die Hard. He's kind of muscular, but he doesn't really look like he works out that much. He really feels like he's just your everyday beat cop who has to take on some terrorists in his bare feet. When this happens in Skyscraper, except for the bare feet, you fully believe that nobody in this movie could possibly take this dude in a fight. Skyscraper seems to even be slightly aware of this, which I'll give them a little bit of credit for, as they try to dress him down, but they really don't succeed at doing this. Something like Snowpiercer is acutely aware that the size of the actor can take you out of the movie, which is why Bong Joon-ho dressed down Chris Evans in lots of layers and baggy clothes, because these characters were supposed to look malnourished, supposed to look like average everyday guy. Throughout Skyscraper, aside from the opening military background scene, he's wearing this button-down blue shirt and dress pants, and it just feels so off. Like they're trying to make him look more like a normal guy, but they're doing a terrible job of it. And when his best friend betrays him, spoiler alert, and is holding a knife to him, and The Rock's holding it back, and he looks like he's struggling, I just keep thinking, like, how is this even a competition? The Rock should overpower this no-name dumbass, which takes a lot of vulnerability out of him. Just like JP Morgan, The Rock is too big to fail. Get it? Nailed it. Jumanji is probably the only film I can think of from the last 10 years where this is actually an advantage to the movie, because he's supposed to be this over-the-top human avatar. He's supposed to look ridiculous. It embraces the ridiculous of the situation and gives the audience some of that wish fulfillment that is so lacking in many of his other movies. That's something I legitimately appreciated about the movie. Plus, they make him feel more vulnerable by making him a 16-year-old scrawny kid inside The Rock, and B, giving him 3 lives. And once they lose those 3 lives, they presumably die for real, which gives their actions a little bit more stake, which makes some moments that led to genuine enjoyment and suspense out of me, which is really, really important for movies like these.
Don't cry, don't cry. Don't cry, it's gonna be okay.
And this leads me to my biggest problem with his movies. A lot of them lack a sense of consequences or stakes. You always know by the end everything's gonna be fine and he's gonna get home to his family or get the girl or both. I mean, sure, most action movies end this way, but the key is making it feel as if someone might actually lose, is in the direction and the writing. Take Mad Max Fury Road. By the end of the movie, you're fairly certain Max is going to survive, but you're not sure. Real stakes have been shown for the entire movie. 2 of the most interesting characters die, as well as most of the side characters. So we're left on the edge of our seat when Furiosa gets stabbed and is bleeding out in the back of this truck, and the movie fades to black. And when she's shown to be alive at the end, there is a huge sigh of relief let out by the audience. Now, take something like Rampage, where an entire city is destroyed by Dwayne Johnson chasing these giant mutated animals. They're all closing in on him, they're about to kill him, but you don't at all feel like he's actually gonna die. Since one of them was his friend, you know he's just gonna turn good, and together they're gonna take down the other ones. It feels so forced at the moment where it seems so hopeless, because you know that it's never going to end up that way. There's no suspense, there's no tension. You're just left waiting for the moment where they take down the bad animals together. At the end, after they destroy a whole city, they make a joke saying, like, "Are you dead? Ah, you're not dead. I thought you were dead." Seriously? Like, you just destroyed a whole city, and I'm pretty sure, like, so many people just died, and you guys are just fine with that? At the end of Skyscraper, he and his kid are left at the top of a burning building, and we're supposed to think, oh no, maybe they're gonna die, but you know there is absolutely no way they're gonna kill off this cute little kid. And of course, the wife gets the fire extinguishers turned on at the last second. By the way, how did the wife get the fire extinguishers turned on? Aren't there like a million technicians for this building? Like, her, really? She was an army nurse, not a technician. Anyway, never feels like there's a vulnerability. There never feels like something's actually going to happen to him or his family. It's such a forced and fake way to provide tension in movies where the tone completely betrays the idea that a good guy could at any point come to harm.
How the hell did you do that?
I rebooted the control systems for the entire building. I turned it off and on again.
That is bullshit.
Skyscraper even does the cheesy gunshot fake out where there's two people arguing over a gun and then a shot goes off and you're supposed to think, oh no, he got shot. Well, I guess the movie's over. That was like 20 minutes. And yeah, maybe this was done to feel sympathy for the bad guy, but I don't give a shit about him. When the direction and the writing of the film fail to make anything actually feel a sense of gravity towards the situation, the entire movie can end up just falling flat.
When it comes to who's better at all these things, from the moment you wake up in the morning, from the time you go to bed, all the boxes check off under my name. Every single one.
This may be in part because of the rumor that he's never allowed to lose a fight because that's part of his contract. I'll admit, I can't really recall a movie with him in the last 10 years where Dwayne Johnson actually loses a fight or isn't forced into a job by external forces. Like in Hobbs&Shaw when he's fighting the
bad guy.
Then a building falls between the two of them. It's like, well, it's a tie. This exemplifies the idea that nobody in any of these movies are better at anything than Dwayne Johnson. He's so star-spangled awesome at all the action movie things, even though most of the time he's been retired for like 5 to 10 years.
It's coming back to me. It's coming back.
That anybody who gets in his way just feels so stock or like cardboard that he's just gonna plow through. Studios seem to be insisting on keeping the persona of the character as unstoppable as possible in order to keep that ultimate badass reputation intact. This completely flattens out a movie's stakes. All you're left with is waiting to see how ridiculously they're going to figure their way out of this one. That seems to be where the only variation in these movies take place.
That's how you win over the crowd.
Now, I don't think this is just his movies that suffer from this. A lot of people like Robert Downey Jr. or Jason Statham or Brad Pitt or Ryan Reynolds or Will Smith or Arnold or Nick Cage or Vin Diesel, to name a few, have suffered from just being plugged into a movie as their character archetype that made them so popular. And it usually results in a mediocre movie-going experience. I mean, have you seen Dolittle? No? How about The Last Witch Hunter? What? No? Surely you must have enjoyed Gemini Man.
Peekaboo.
Still no? How odd. And this is symptomatic of the greater issue plaguing the film industry: complacency. Studios and actors seem to often be complacent, just doing the same thing in every movie just to have a good turnaround at the box office. From the music to the score to the cinematography to the direction, the action, the writing, these movies don't really have a voice. Like they could be made by any one of 100 filmmakers. Most of the time, studios hire these cookie-cutter writers and directors who will just mold their movies into a successful film or series of films with a beginning and end point already in their minds. And sure, this works sometimes. You watch a Marvel film and you can tell who's directing them and who's writing them. The only thing noticeable about a Dwayne Johnson film is, well, Dwayne Johnson. They might have been directed for a robot for all I know. Movie studios seem to love taking what's worked and throwing it back at us over and over until we get sick of it, and then finding someone else and doing the same thing all over again.
Because I'm flexing this and all of that.
Now, I believe there is one movie star I genuinely feel makes an effort to bring the highest quality to every single film he makes, and that's Tom Cruise. Each movie he comes out with, he seems 100% committed to making it the best story and directing and acting he can possibly give. Even when the movie's bad, like The Mummy, which seemed to be doomed from its conception, there is still clear effort on his part to try and make the movie as best it can be. Look at Mission Impossible Fallout. It's intense, it's well shot, it's well directed, where you actually feel the vulnerability and the conflict of our main hero. Ethan Hunt's character progression is extremely well realized, because there actually is one. Sure, we know he's going to do the right thing. He seems to be doing that in every movie. But the movie makes a point to show how he does the right thing is just as important as the fact that he's actually doing it. His flaws are spelled out at the start of the film, that he's willing to let one life come above millions, and he has to defend that notion for the entire rest of the movie when the world is at risk. Every Dwayne Johnson film, every villain is just like, oh yeah, here's the next one. They want to do something evil. The villains don't feel nearly as disposable in this. They're bigger and or just as skilled as our main character. So you really feel like he has to rely on more than just his muscles, but his ingenuity, which make him feel often like he's out of his element or even desperate. You don't know how much he's going to suffer. You don't know how much he's willing to give before the movie reaches its conclusion. And the action is just impeccably directed. Each shot seems to be just dripping with attention and care that so many action films today aren't even given. And this is the 6th movie of the franchise. This is what action movie franchises are supposed to be. Constantly trying to outdo themselves and unwilling to coast through the filmmaking process. And it's not just Mission Impossible, there's Minority Report, there's Edge of Tomorrow, there's Valkyrie, there's Collateral, Oblivion, Jack Reacher, not the second Jack Reacher, and even Night and Day, where you can tell they were all given special care by crews and the filmmakers to make something unique and something memorable. Even if some are better made than the others, I would still much rather watch any of those than any uninspired movie that any nameless studio is coming out with these days.
My cock's small.
Oh, I get it. I get jokes.
Now, Dwayne Johnson isn't a bad actor. I mean, just look at The Rundown, or Ballers, or Snitch, or Jumanji.
I'm a nerd.
Or Fast 5, or I'll even say it, Pain and Gain for great performances. I'm honestly genuinely excited for the Black Adam movie he has coming out because that's such an interesting character to be brought to live action, and I think a deep dive into the psyche of an extremely powerful supervillain would be something really cool. But if it ends up being the same boring movie that he seems to be coming out with at least once or twice a year, I'm just so afraid that I'm gonna leave disappointed. In crafting a character that is meant to be likable and appeasable enough to everyone, these movie studios created a persona that everyone can watch, but that no one will really remember after they've stood up and walked out of the theater.